Mute your mics. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. We're here with Co-working Live with Red Worldwide, and we are so excited that you're here with us today. Today is a good day, and we have some very special things planned. I know that normally we would be talking more about health and wellness on this episode today, but we're going to have an extension from yesterday because of some technical difficulties that we had, and we didn't get an opportunity to really share with our audience everything that we had available. So we are just going to do a deep dive on how do we insulate and protect our our families from potential business risks. And so, with that said, Jerome, will you throw our slides up on the board for us? Awesome, awesome. And so you are here because you have joined in with Co-working Live. And one of the things that I do want to make sure that you are aware of is that this podcast is a part of the Red Worldwide's educational attempts to make sure that businesses and prospective business owners, inventors, and those who are all a part of the ecosystem that creates opportunities for people to get into doing business. We make this podcast available, and we make it available on every possible social media platform that we have access to. So we want to make sure that you know that this is a part of the Red Worldwide attempt, or I should say, their initiative, not even attempt, it's an initiative that we have to make sure that business owners have the best possible knowledge available, through these particular types of platforms. Okay, with that said, Ron, next slide, please. I just want to give a shout out to Javon Freeman and Lux Vision Studios, who's here with us so faithfully every day to make sure that we have the ability to stream and to stream with excellence. And so we're excited about that. We are currently traveling, so you might notice a little bit of a interesting effect on the background, but we do know that we are able to show everything that we can to make sure that everyone is able to see. So, as we stated, we are talking about insulating and protecting your family from potential business risks. Next slide, please. So, the risk of business ownership. Okay, and we want to really pay attention to the fact that there are some risks when we come into looking at everything within our businesses and all of the work that we do every day to make sure that we have amazing things available to us in business. We think that some of the things that kind of get left out are the things that sometimes are most important. And so when we are looking at all of the things that we do to make our businesses everything that we make them. Some of the things that we don't remember to pay attention to is the fact that if something goes wrong in our business, and I want you to hear me when I say this, our families could potentially be greatly harmed. And so we want to know, how do we protect them? How do we protect the family? Should something happen where the business fails or the business has a hard, road for a little short stint, you know, because with business success comes great responsibility, not just in managing the way that we do business, but also in safeguarding the family's future. So let's explore some of those items that we need to be thinking about when we have a business to make sure that our business is doing well. And that when we are doing well, our families are not at risk. Okay, next slide, please. So, just from the onset, when you own a business, a successful business, we have lots of rewards, the financial remuneration that comes, the, I guess I would look at it this way, the outlook, okay, of, having the ability to one day have time and freedom because of this wonderful business that you have now embarked upon, but again, the risks and the tax implications can also impact your family. And when you're thinking about it, you also want to look at the fact that legal liabilities, financial instability sometimes can happen. There are operational challenges and risks. There are sometimes threats to reputation, when things are not going well. So without proper planning, the risk can lead to stress. The risk can lead to financial burdens for your loved one. The risks can sometimes even lead to legal issues that arise from the disputes with partners and others, customers, even employees. Sometimes financial instability might result in market, fluctuations, economic downturn, and unexpected expenses. And those things can impact the family. Next slide, please. However, there is great value in planning. And if you are using your estate planning properly, you can safeguard your family in a way that will help to create an opportunity for the family to be insulated or better protected. Next slide, please. So the value of estate planning. Well, the importance, of being able to have what we call a legacy plan, a plan that actually keeps the family separated from the business, is crucial for protecting the future of the family. And especially when it comes to asset distribution, it ensures that the assets that you amass and that you want to be directed to the family are distributed according to your wishes and can help avoid any unnecessary legal disputes and tax liabilities. There's some key components in estate planning that could help to make sure that things are also in place should you come to an untimely demise, and you have some loss of life, or if you become too ill. And so we want to talk about those, and those five areas are the last will and testament, the powers of attorney, your advanced health directives, revocable trusts, and life insurance. Next slide, please. So we'll talk about the last will and testament first. A lot of people approach this one last, but I want to talk about it first because there are some things for people to be thinking about, when they're talking about their last will and testament. And I want to make sure that, we approach it from the standpoint of a lot of people feel like, if they have a will, that everything is in place and that they don't really need to do anything else. Next slide, please. I want to share with you that the last will and testament is very, very important, and it specifies how you want your property administrated, and after your death. It also specifies who you might want to be the executor of your estate, and it designates the people, the beneficiaries, your children or others, who you want things to be left to. And you can even nominate guardians for minor children as well. And so the will is very, very important because without it, the state laws will determine how these assets are distributed. They'll do their due diligence and they will go forward and making some things happen, okay, because you didn't leave instructions. So the will are instructions. However, the will itself is not foolproof in that it only will designate these particular people to do the things that you want done, but it does not give enough instructions to allow your assets from having to go through probate. And so you'll need, in addition to the will, another piece in your estate plan to make sure that you do not have to just be in a situation where you're having the information that you've left for to be executed, but having to have the state get involved through the probate courts to do that, for a fee, by the way, because they do charge a fee. Next slide, please. So you want to position yourself with the will, that you are, putting everything in place, and you use, estate planning professionals to help you set it up. But you also want to know that you have to complete the estate plan so that everything doesn't end up going through probate anyway. And the next part of the plan should be your powers of attorney. Next slide, please. So the powers of attorney, they authorize people who you desire, your trusted individuals, to handle financial and healthcare decisions if you're not able to do so. And, that could be that you're not in the country. It could be that you're too ill to do so. It could be that you can't be contacted. Okay. So all of those do apply in the case of, having somebody in place that could weigh in if you are not able to be contacted for any reason, all right, while you're alive, okay, because the powers of attorney are in effect, while you're alive. Okay, and so you want to be looking at, the fact that the powers of attorney ensures that your affairs are managed according to the way that you wanted them to be, while um, you were able to make those decisions and available to make those decisions, and then it could extend to situations in which you are incapacitated or physically, unable to give the decisions over to the parties that need to have them. I've shared a couple times where when my children were young and I was traveling a lot for work, that I had certain types of powers of attorneys in place, to make sure that if certain things needed to be handled, I could pass them off to others who were watching over my children, and to make sure that my wishes were, followed, if I were not available to, make those decisions. But you also want to make sure that your powers of attorney has what they call durability. So durability is, what is in place to make the power of attorney last throughout your life until you revoke it or you pass away. And so it's very important that you don't allow a power of attorney to expire, okay, when you are intentional about making sure that it's available, for it's for the use, for whatever the purpose is, whether it's financial or a healthcare power of attorney, or for that matter, real estate power of attorney, whatever the power of attorney is, you want to make sure that it remains for the time frame that you intended it to. Okay, next slide, please. So, another area in our estate plan is going to be the living will, or what we call advanced healthcare directives. Next slide. Now, when we have the advanced healthcare directives, its whole purpose is to leave instructions, in a manner in which people can understand what you would like to happen for your end of life care. Or in some of the cases, these health directives could be there, just if something happens where you're unconscious, you're not in a situation where death is imminent, but you're not able to speak for yourself. So this tells every person who is dealing with you, the doctors and nurses, your family members, and other who need to have that information, what your healthcare wishes are, and it ensures that they're respected, and they relieve your family members of having to make difficult decisions, um, if you don't want them to have that responsibility. So that living will outlines the preferences for life-sustaining treatments if you're terminally ill or in a permanent vegetative state, or otherwise incapacitated and unable to share what your wishes are. Next slide, please. Revocable trust. Okay. So the revocable trust helps to manage your assets during your lifetime. Next slide, please. And it distributes them, after your death without uh, going through probate. And so we talked about how if you just have a will, or if there's no will, then you are sure to have to go through probate. But when you have the revocable trust, it is an asset management tool that allows for the management of your assets during your lifetime and the distribution of them after your death without the probate process. And it's an efficient way to speed up, you know, um, but also reduce costs and minimize the, you know, risks of things being done differently than what would have wanted them to. And it maintains your privacy. Um, and then you have the ability to place your assets into the revocable trust, and have them managed by a trustee, someone whom you can designate and who will act in your best interest and in the best interest of those with whom you are going to share your assets after your death. Now, what I can also say about the revocable trust is that it also has the capacity to designate how many, people you would have in succession should something happen where you need a successor, to operate as the trustee. You have that ability inside of that trust. You also have the ability to place the guardian, um, for your children, and to give all of the instructions for the guardian to designate how much money you want moved, from any accounts, to take care of your children. You can also place a pet trust in there to take care of your wonderful pets. You can, inside of this revocable trust, you can say how you would want the trustee to handle any businesses that you might own. There are just so many benefits to having these instructions in writing and making sure that you cover all of the areas that are pertinent to your life and your livelihood. Next slide, please. Then lastly, the fifth area of the estate plan is the life insurance. The life insurance is vital, and having a contract with a company that could um, distribute assets, funds that you leave in the contract, for your final expenses, and also you could possibly have a permanent policy which may have some cash value that can help to build a legacy for your family or even for chosen charities. I mean, and then with regards to the life insurance, there could be a death benefit from a life insurance policy that could generally be paid out income tax free to the beneficiaries. But you could also have, again, somewhere where you have those um, uh, permanent policies that are available to help take care of you in the event that you won't be able to work for a period of time. There are policies that also could designate or be designated for tuition for your children when they get ready to go to college. There's all types of options when it comes to life insurance. And so understanding that it is a part of the estate plan, and it can be a part of creating a lasting public legacy even for your family, through a directive that you place in the policy to have the funds go to a specific charity. So you want to be looking at all of the options that may be available to you when it comes to life insurance, and how life insurance can be used as a not just for final expenses, but as a part of a reserve strategy for your family. Next slide, please. Okay, so what is the role of succession planning? Well, succession planning kind of ensures that there's a smooth transition, in your business to make the kinds of decisions, of what roles, people might be able to step up into should something happen where you reach your freedom point and you're no longer going to be working in the business, or you decide that you um, are uh, going to have in place a set of um, plans so that if something happens again where you come to an untimely demise, there's no question about who's supposed to take over. Next slide, please. The role of succession planning is so that the business can transfer, or transition to your next generation of chosen successors without any hiccups or challenges. And so you're really putting things in place so you can preserve and actually increase the value of your business, because when you have a situation where you are not the only one that knows everything, you're not the only one that can run the company, you have something in place that is easy to follow. Then the banks and others who are evaluating your company can actually increase your valuation because of the fact that it's not all about you. Okay. And so there's some key elements of succession planning that include identifying your successors, structuring a transition, and providing training and mentorship to those who are going to be stepping up into the roles of CEO, maybe COO, or people who will be in place for as president, whatever your C-suite roles look like in your company. Next slide, please. Now, when we think about identifying successors, there's some things we probably should do. Next slide. Let's talk about those. Um, so the fact that it is a very critical step, in the process, you've got to be able to identify, the successes, but you also need to be able to groom them, prepare them properly for the role that they are going to now have. And in your selection process, choosing individuals who can uphold your business values, continue the business culture, and continue in their longevity of learning. You want to make sure that you have people that are willing to continue to learn as they are growing into their positions. It's very important that in the process of having people who are going to operate as the company's owners or founders, or for that matter, or I should not even say, just owners and founders, because additionally, you might have people who help to found the company who are stepping into the role of CEO. So I want to be really clear that sometimes the successor might be someone who was already there and was helping you to run the company already, and then you begin to pull them into the process of being, the head person, in the company, or the chief executive in the company. And so that process could, be very easy for some, but for others, you may have to really, if it's a family-owned company and you have all of the children working, and you have to go through the process of deciding who is going to actually step into a role, that could be a very serious proposition. Because there might be some criteria that you have to put in place to make sure you know who the best person is for the job. But it's important for you to have an early start, right? As early as possible in your company, you want to be looking at who the next, group of owners will be, or who the next group of, executives in the company will be. How do you provide those people with the necessary training and mentorship, so that they will be able to step into their roles and be strong in their positions, to make sure there's continuity in the business, and that the business does not, fail because of have or for lack of having the right leadership. Okay, next slide, please. So the role of succession planning in and of itself is very, very important. Um, and if it's done right, then you could end up in a situation where the company, when it transitions, it actually does better than what it did when you first brought it into being, which is what you want. You want the company to transition in a way that is going to be a positive and powerful opportunity for all of those involved. Next slide, please. Okay, next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, here we are. All right, so the way that we have a smooth um, transition is to have, planning, okay, and the things that we want to do, in this process, and I think we've done this slide already. Next slide, please. Is to, make sure, and again, next slide, please. I think we have some duplicates in here. Next slide, please. There we go. Um, to do some planning so that we can structure, the transition, and make sure that everything rolls out in the way that you desired. So there's some legal and financial planning that has to be done to ensure that the handover is seamless. And what those might look like for some people, it might, depending on the kind of company, it could be something that's very simple, and for others there may need to be something a little more formal. So we talk about using buy sell agreements, in the process of succession planning. This would include setting up, a an agreement that actually states that the company is transitioning, and that the party who has become the leader, or the executive, is now also the owner, okay, in this process. And when that ownership is transferred, in that buy sell agreement, there are certain types of things that are listed, a certain way, so that you can manage the tax implication of the transfer. When you transfer outside of a buy sell agreement, it could be, that the transfer tax, that happens with the business could end up being very exorbitant. And so you want to do things in such a way that you transition the business, with the least amount of tax implication possible, especially if you're transitioning it to your children. And in that ownership transfer, it's really, important that you outline how the ownership interests will be transferred upon the owner's death, disability, or retirement. Because sometimes you could be planning for succession, and then you have an unexpected interruption, because someone becomes too ill to run the company, or for that matter, they pass away. And in these particular situations, if the information was not conveyed properly in the buy sell agreement, it could provide, a quite of a challenge, for those in the business. So even though they knew that, what you wanted and how you wanted it to happen, sometimes it could be a challenge in making those things happen quickly. And so you want to make sure that you leave these instructions and you put them, in the right order. And having these types of agreements, the buy sell agreement, could very well help to ensure that there are no challenges there. Next slide, please. Okay, training and mentorship. Next slide. Um, when you're able to train people effectively, then you end up with what we call operational efficiency. And what that means is that the people who are in the positions who will be taking over as the leaders, taking over as the executives of the company, they have the ability to move into their roles quickly, ensuring the continuity of the company, and that there is efficiency and no challenges there. By developing out the skills and mentoring those people who you are going to choose, even if they're your children and they've been watching you for 100 years. Okay, that's what they'll say. 100 years, kids, they have a tendency to overgeneralize, or to, embellish. But if they've been watching you for the last 15 years of their life, 20 years of their life, do the same thing the same way. Having the ability to train them ensures that maybe some small steps that they didn't even notice are in place, or standard operating procedures are being followed. And it's invaluable, when they have that hand over hand guidance to make sure that things are being done effectively and efficiently, because they're able to develop the skills and the knowledge to lead the business into a very powerful existence. Okay, next slide, please. Okay. All right. So when you're able to combine your estate planning and your succession planning together, it's really a very powerful integrated strategy. And this integrated strategy involves aligning your estate plan with your business succession plan. It ensures that all aspects of your legacy are coordinated and that your family's interests are protected. Next slide, please. Okay. So this is a holistic approach. There are a lot of approaches, but we choose this particular approach because we believe that in helping you to understand how you can um, coordinate things in such a way that it's all connected, it does, create for you a better way of protecting your family's future and ensuring the longevity of your business at the same time. Having an integrated strategy involves aligning your estate plan and your succession plan and making sure that, there is a coordination, of your legacy, so that your interests are, protected and your wishes are followed. Okay. Next slide, please. Uh, so when you have a coordinated legacy, the integrated strategy, that you have that involves aligning your estate plan, um, and your business succession plan, people are able to, see, that this process is smooth, and that there is no interruption in services that you provide every day. For instance, you might use a revocable trust to manage both your personal and business assets, ensuring a smooth transition upon your death. But you also could have a coordinated strategy that connects your revocable trust to your family trust by having the family trust as the beneficiary of the living trust. And in doing so, it could provide another part of that coordination that makes it for ease of use. You could also have irrevocable life insurance trusts that are connected together to make sure that you have, again, a seamless transition, and that, the insurance is inside of a trust that could pay out and leave the reserve strategy for the family that can be used in the family's trust. And so these are all, just some suggestions, or not necessarily something that's written in stone, but it's something that you could do, for your family to ensure that you, again, have the continuity that you might need. Next slide, please. So, how do we mitigate risks and taxes? Next slide. Well, by working with an estate planning professional, and financial advisors, or even an estate attorney, you can mitigate risk and minimize your tax liabilities, because they can look at it from the planning standpoint and see, okay, how much are you making right now? How much will you make in the future? And based on, what is going on currently, with the laws, the tax codes, and all of the necessary information that you need to be aware of when you're doing your planning. There are suggestions and recommendations that can be made to make sure that you're able to properly preserve your wealth for your future generations. Um, there are tax advantages that, a tax professional or an estate planning professional or an advisor might bring out, that, for example, a trust, could possibly, their revocable trust could possibly provide tax advantages by removing the assets from your taxable estate and shielding them from creditors by putting them in the irrevocable trust, and making them available there would make it so that you've reduced, the taxable estate. And when you reduce the taxable estate, you reduce the tax. Okay, next slide, please. So, the importance of life insurance in planning. Okay, so let's talk about this just for a minute. Next slide. Your life insurance is a powerful tool in both your estate and succession planning. You could use life insurance to um, really provide the liquidity, as we talked about, in security, and it can help you with your long-term succession planning. Okay, so the goals that you might have, and so provide you with some security that, you might not have thought about before. But the thing that I want you to understand about life insurance, that it could help you to achieve what we call estate equalization, and ensure for the distribution amongst beneficiaries, especially when you're dealing with illiquid assets like a business or real estate. It can provide, a process in which you can prevent disputes amongst the heirs, okay? Because you have inside of the policies and very strict guidance. And when you designate through a life insurance contract what you want done, how you want it done, to whom you want it done, okay, inside the contract, it's not, something that's easily, avoided. Uh, and when I say that when it's not something easily avoided, what I mean is that, in other words, you don't end up with a situation where heirs are fighting, because the contract itself is what it is. If you have a life insurance policy for all of the children and it's designated to them according to their needs, and that amount is already set, then that's not something that can be moved. It's not something that can be changed by any of them. It's only changed by the owner of the policy, even though the policy might be on a particular individual or designated for a specific beneficiary. So these are things that you might want to be thinking about. And ways in which you could utilize those policies varies. And so you can really get a very well-rounded plan when you have these in place. So let's look at some real life examples. Next slide, please. Okay. So I'm going to give you a few case studies because I want you to be thinking about, um, how this is done in the real world. Okay. So in our first case study, we'll explore how a comprehensive estate plan helped a family business transition smoothly while protecting its assets from legal and tax challenges. So we got Michael and Donna. They were owners of a successful manufacturing business, and they wanted to ensure that their children could continue running the business after their passing. They worked with their estate planning professional to create a comprehensive plan that included a revocable trust, um, life insurance, and a succession plan. The trust managed their business assets while the life insurance provided the liquidity needed to cover the estate taxes and other expenses. Upon their passing, the business transitioned seamlessly to their children, and who continued to grow the company without any financial strain or burden or legal disputes. Okay. So our second case study highlights the importance of a well-structured succession plan in ensuring that businesses continued, and the family harmony was still in place. Sarah, who was the owner of a family-owned retail chain, recognized the importance of planning for the future, and she identified that her niece, Emily, would be the best possible successor, and she began mentoring her early on. So together, they developed out this succession plan. Please go back to the other slide. And that included a buy-sell agreement that was funded by life insurance. And the agreement ensured that Emily could purchase Sarah's shares upon her retirement, providing a seamless transition. And when Sarah decided to retire, Emily took over the business with confidence, and the life insurance proceeds covered the purchase without straining the business's finances. So it was quite interesting how they structured that, in that the policy was available for Emily to actually purchase the business from her aunt. And that is a really interesting opportunity for someone to step into a business that they are going to now own, giving the person who created the business an opportunity to receive what they desire and deserved from that business. Okay. So let's look at our third case study. Jeffrey and Susan, they were affluent business owners, and they were concerned about the potential estate tax implications for their heirs. To address this, they set up an ILIT, an irrevocable life insurance trust. The ILIT owned the life insurance policy on Michael's life, and he made regular contributions to his trust, or to the family's trust, I should say, that ILIT, to pay the premiums. When Jeffrey passed away, the death benefit was paid to the trust, providing a significant amount of liquidity to cover estate taxes and other expenses without increasing the taxable estate. This strategy ensured that their heirs received the maximum benefit from their estate. Okay. And our fourth and last case study demonstrates how a survivorship standby trust can provide flexibility and estate tax efficiency. I recently learned about this particular type of trust at a training I was in a few weeks ago, and it's very interesting because I'd heard about it, but I didn't really understand how it could possibly work in the case of a business owner. So talk about Bill and Wanda, who are a married couple, and they established a survivorship standby trust combined with a second to die life insurance policy. Now, the trust was designed to take ownership of the policy upon the first spouse's death. This strategy allowed them to maintain control of the policy during their lifetimes, including access to the cash value for supplemental retirement income. Upon the second spouse's death, the death benefit was paid to the trust and distributed to the heirs, providing the estate liquidity and avoiding inclusion in the taxable estate. And so I think that this is a wonderful way of, creating continuity and making sure that the heirs, of course, get access to the funds, but also ensuring that during the lifetime, if they need the money, the initial owners, could take advantage of that policy in a way that makes sense. Now let's look at our steps to move forward. So, practical steps to get started. Well, you're going to start by assessing your current situation. Gather your financial information, review your business structure, and identify the potential risks and tax liabilities that you may have. Understanding your current assets and liabilities and overall financial health is really the first step, in creating an effective plan. Then you want to consult with your professional, your planning professional, whether it be your estate planner, your financial planner, your tax advisor, or your attorney. You might want to take a time to, really sit down and ask them for their expertise in helping you to create a comprehensive plan for your needs. I mean, the one that's tailored. Okay, because their expertise, their knowledge, could really inform your process and help you to gain valuable insights into, something that you are just embarking upon. Okay, you need those effective strategies, and for your specific situation to save you time and money. Okay. Then you want to draft and implement your estate and succession plans. That might be two separate things. You might need to work with your business advisor for the succession plan while you're working with your estate planning professional on your estate plan. And then bringing the two things together, will give you the ability to ensure that everything can be properly executed, and that your family and the successors that you choose are going to be aware of your wishes. Clearly communicate the plans to them, because it's going to be important for them to understand how things are supposed to work, and any other stakeholders in the business, especially, so that you don't have any misunderstandings. You want to be able to avoid misunderstandings at all costs. Then lastly, you want to regularly review and update your plans to reflect your changes in life, in the business, and the law, because sometimes things do change. And so you want to have the opportunity to have that, annual review, so that you can make any changes. And then, of course, the 3 to 5 year review as well. Okay. All right. So we're going to take some questions. And just want you to, understand that we have about three questions that I have here, and I'll go ahead and answer those right quick because I want to make sure that if you, you might have had some of these same questions. So I'm only going to be able to answer three, but we'll take them now. So the first question was, what are the tax benefits of using a trust in estate planning? Well, trust can offer significant tax benefits when you remove the assets, from the taxable estate and you put them into an irrevocable trust. It reduces the estate tax and it makes it so that the assets are in a place where you don't have to concern yourself with the taxes that will be paid when you pass away. A lot of people don't realize that when a person passes away, there are some final taxes that have to be done. So, for that reason, you want to make sure that as much of your estate as possible is removed, as much of it that would cause tax implications is removed from the taxable estate within 3 years, 3 years before you pass away. Okay. And so that, you don't know ever when you're going to pass away, but removing them as soon as possible and putting them in a place where it's in what we call the not you trust, okay? The trust with the EIN number, the trust that does not have any interaction with your ownership. That would be really appropriate. All right. Question number two, how often should I review my estate plan? Well, I kind of covered that a little bit ago. And when I said that you should do some sort of an annual review just to make sure that if something changed, you could have that information available in the trust, because in your revocable trust, it's, because it's revocable, you can make changes, often as the person who is the grantor and also probably the trustee. Okay, you have the ability to do that. In an irrevocable trust, changes are not going to be able to be made by the person who is the grantor. If there are changes that need to be made, it can only be done by the trustee. And those changes, some of them may even require the permission or the interaction with the beneficiary. So, you want to be thinking about, anything that you need to make sure that happens inside of your trust, that you are making these changes and making these decisions properly so that you don't end up in a situation where something is different than what you would have wanted. But generally speaking, the 3 to 5 year review is appropriate for a lot of types of trusts where they're not going to be, you know, um, significant life events, that happen to affect them. So you'll do like that annual kind of review where you're just making sure that things are still in place or you need to add something, you can add it. And then the 3 to 5 review is going to be more of the, okay, we need to look at this and make sure that everything is still working the way it's supposed to, that none of the laws change that could affect, you know, the trust itself, and that nothing, the business is not going to be sold or something else happening with the business that we need to note inside of the trust. Okay, then our last question is, can I change the beneficiaries of my life insurance policy after the life insurance policy is in a trust? Good question. If the policy is held in an irrevocable trust, changing the beneficiaries can be kind of complex, and there may be, it may not even be possible without significant tax or legal implications. And so you want to make those changes before you put the policy in the trust. It's very important for you to do that because, you don't end up with those issues, that could take a while to fix, okay, or could be costly to fix. So, having your beneficiaries changed or even making the trust the beneficiary, might be something that you would consider as you are, working with your trust document. Well, with that said, again, that's all we have time for today. We're right here at the top of the hour, but thank you so much for being here with us on Co-working Live with Red Worldwide. We hope this has been a beneficial and informative session today, and we are very much interested in making sure that you insulate and protect your family from business risks, potential failures, or any other type of issue. And so, with that, information that we have shared, hopefully you are able to take it and put it into place and use it, and make sure that you have, properly put things in place to protect your family. If you have other questions, or if you're interested in learning about potential estate planning attorneys, or estate planning professionals, estate planners, tax advisors, we have a list. Okay, so you can reach out to us, and we can help you. We also have our sister organization that we work with, um, uh, Precision Tax Advisors, Precision Management Group, that does estate planning. And so, we will be glad to accommodate you if you're interested in anything that we have, over there. Well, thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you again next time.